Now Peter's response. In Matthew it reads, Peter answered and said to him, Mark, but Peter said to him. I think it makes sense to have that word at the beginning, but from Mark. But they both name Peter. Matthew answered, and both said to him is both. Matthew, though all men shall be offended because of you. Mark, although all shall be offended. So it's shorter in Mark. Though all men be offended, or although. I think though actually makes more sense. I'm going to go with that. I see although as like a however. And if he's beginning to respond to someone, it doesn't quite make as much sense to say however. You wouldn't say, however, you're right. Except for me. You'd say, though you're right, except for me. Matthew has all men, but the men are in italics, so I'm going to leave it out and just have all shall be offended the way Mark has it. Both all shall be offended. Matthew has because of you. Mark just says, yet will not I. So Matthew has extra words. Because of you. Yet will I never be offended. Versus, yet will not I. The will is in italics in Mark. The yet is in italics in Matthew. So both together, all the words are there. Yet from Mark, will from Matthew, I from both. But Mark just has not I. Matthew has never be offended. So I'll have yet from Mark, Matthew, will, I is both. I think Matthew makes more sense. Never be offended. Matthew continues, Jesus said to him, Mark, and Jesus says to him. I'll have the and from Mark. Jesus is both. Because it's Jesus, I'll put says. Whenever I have the option, I want to do that. It's like my little inside joke. Jesus' words are eternal. Both to him. Verily I say to you, that this day verily I say to you that this night alright, verily I say to you that this, I already know how the story ends. It's still nighttime when this comes to pass. Although the new day starts when the sun sets. And the whole day includes the evening and the morning, meaning the night and the day. So I guess having day wouldn't be a problem. Oh, wait a minute, Mark has both. Even this night. Well, in that case, I'll have the way Mark has it, both. Day in this night. Even is added from Mark. About this, twice, just that one word is added here in Mark. It's not here in Matthew. Why isn't it here in Matthew? Verily I say to you, that this night before the cock crow you shall deny me thrice. This is a huge supposed contradiction that people point to. Is he going to deny him before the rooster crows at all? Or is the rooster going to crow once, then before the second rooster crowing, Peter will have denied him 3 times? The other 3 Gospels have the rooster crowing only once. Mark has the rooster crowing 1 time after his first denial, and then he denies him 2 more times. Verse 68, the first time he denied, saying, I know not, neither understand I what you say. And he went out into the porch. And then there's a last sentence, and the cock crew. His first denial, there was 1 crowing. Then, and the maid saw him again, and began to say to them that stood by, this is one of them. Verse 70, he denied it again. So his second denial. Surely you are one of them, for you are Galilean, and your speech agrees thereto. His third accusation, and then verse 71, his third denial. But he began to curse and to swear, saying, I know not this man of whom you speak. And the second time the cock crew. It even says that here in Mark. The second time the cock crew. And Peter called to mind the word that Jesus said to him, before the cock crow twice, you shall deny me thrice. There is a note in here. Michael Rood, he has gone through some of the older manuscripts that I haven't. He notes Event 182, Part 2. Peter disagrees, or Kepha disagrees with Yeshua, who tells him a second time that he would betray him. He organizes the verse like this. Truth, I say to you today, even twice in this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. That makes perfect sense, because he did tell Peter that he would deny him earlier, before they left, in Luke and John. Only here in Matthew and Mark is it after they left that Jesus says these words. So it makes perfect sense for him to say, twice in this night, I'm telling you, that you will deny me 3 times. Or this is the second time I'm telling you, you will deny me 3 times. Let me read you the note for Mark 14:30. The King James Version reads, Verily I say unto thee, that this day, even in this night, before the cock crow twice, thou shalt deny me thrice. There is no reference to the cock crowing twice in any of the Gospels or any of the early manuscripts of Mark until a second cock crowing was added into much later texts of Mark 14:68 in an attempt to justify the interpretation of 187. That event is when he is denying Jesus. Other punctuations in the English versions read, before the cock crows, twice thou shalt deny me thrice. Realizing that there is no second crowing of the cock in any gospel records, nor in any early manuscripts, this variation is strenuously interpreted to yield a total of 6 denials. 2 times the 3 denials would be 6 total denials. Variations within the accounts have been strained to produce more than 3 denials, but this tortuous maneuver is unnecessary. The truth is evident in the chronology of the text. At the dinner table that evening, Yeshua told Kepha that he would not accompany him where he was going. Kepha insisted that he was up to the challenge, and said he would die for him. Yeshua told Kepha, this is Peter, that he was going to deny him 3 times for the cock crowing in the early morning hours. Later, upon leaving the upper room and just before crossing the Kidron Valley, Yeshua told the disciples that they would all be offended and scattered as sheep. Event 182. This is when Kepha remonstrated with Yeshua and adamantly declared that he would never, ever forsake him. Yeshua then told Kepha a second time that he would deny him 3 times before the crowing of the rooster. Thus, twice in that very night, Yeshua told Kepha clearly and emphatically that he would deny him 3 times before the crowing of the rooster. By putting every word in detail into the vice of linear chronology, can one see the depth of the divine screenplay unfold and solve apparent contradictions that have plagued readers of the Bible for centuries. Now, there is still a problem though, because at the end of Mark 14, it clearly says, the second time the cock crew, and later in verse 72, it says that there's going to be 2 crowings. So, what is right? Are these words added in verse 72? At least Bible Hub says that those words are actually there. they wouldn't take into account the disagreements between manuscripts. It just says this is what their version of the Greek says. So I then have the option of keeping all these extra words in Mark 14:72, twice you shall deny me thrice. And at the beginning, this is actually the most problematic, the second time the cock crew. The second time. I would just have to leave out the second time, those three words. Another thing to take into account is that John was actually there. John 18. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. John doesn't say it was himself, but it's pretty clear from the context. That disciple was known to the high priest and went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest. So Peter and John are actually there. And in this account of John, there's no mention of the second rooster crowing. Verse 27, Peter then denied him, and immediately the cock crew. No mention of it being the second time. So you have that, because John was written well after Mark. At least that's what the scholars say. Wouldn't he take into account what came earlier? Why would he directly contradict? Unless he was putting what was most correct as he remembered it. However, to make this even more muddy, Mark was an associate of Peter. That's how the story goes, that Mark dictated from Peter's own eyewitness testimony how these events took place. So, since this story is directly about Peter, you'd think that Peter would relay it the most accurately. But that still makes it the minority witness from Matthew and Luke and John. So I'm stuck between going for the majority witness, Matthew, Luke, and John, of only one rooster crowing, and leaving out those words at the end of Mark 14:72 that it was the second time, and I'll have to order the words the same way I order this now. Or just going with Mark, because Mark was an associate of Peter. The story directly concerns Peter, so maybe that's more accurate. Because I've gone with the majority witness in the past, I'm going to stick to that now. I'm going to leave off this second crowing of the rooster and just say that it was one, and that perhaps it was added later on. I know that there are going to be people who disagree, but I would rather go with the majority witness, unless I am absolutely sure. It just cannot be a certain way. And now I have 3-1. It's not 2-1. All three other Gospels only mention one crowing of the rooster. So I'm going with that. The reason why I spoke that now is because the word twice, I think the best place to put it is just after verily I say to you, and before he says that this day. So verily I say to you twice, and instead of just going into that this day, I'm going to take that word even. That word is in italics, meaning it was added there by the translators to help us understand what is going on. I think it needs to be twice even. I was hoping I could find the word now. That would make perfect sense. Verily I say to you twice now, that this day, even this night, before the cock crow, you shall deny me thrice. He said it once before, now he's saying it a second time. But the word now is nowhere to be found around here. I think it would work if I take even. Twice even. So now it reads, and Jesus says to him, verily I say to you, twice even, that this day in this night, before the cock crow, you shall deny me thrice. All that is both.